My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I'm bringing a friend of mine from Gametime. His name, Pete Paguaga. I think I said it right.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
It's a pleasure to be able to have you on. And most of all, I haven't seen you since the Nuggy Sacred Heart game at Sacred Heart. It's a pleasure to see your face.
Yeah, man. It's great to see you. Thank you very much for having me on. CT talent. I don't know how I fit into that talent word because I've seen some of the people that you've had on this show, a lot of coaches and athletes who are way more talented than I am, but I am very glad to be here.
Don't be modest, man. You are talented in your own way. I mean, I think first off, before we get into what has happened during your time with Gametime, your journey to Gametime is as long as my paper. Please go over your LinkedIn resume.
So let's see. Graduated Southern in May of 2012. January 13th of 2013, I started working as the sports editor of the Register Citizen in Torrington, which was part of the New Haven Register Company, which was 21st Century Media, I believe. And then that September, the New Haven Register, Sean Barker, our sports editor, we launched Gametime CT. So I was part of Gametime at the beginning, at the ground floor, with Boley and Morelli and, that group. Then I left to go to the Norwalk Hour for a more expanded role, kind of spread my wings and grow because, the New Haven Register staff then was huge and so talented. We had Mary Albel, Mike Pucci, Chris Hahn. There were so many amazing reporters on that staff where, I went out and kind of spread my own wings. Then I did Norwalk for a year and a half. Then I went to Meriden it was a digital only job where they put a camera in my hand and they said, go and do whatever you want. So I was doing news and sports videos, obviously love high school sports, doing high school football, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer. I would go to 3 or 4 games a day for a couple of minutes each, just bang out a couple of highlights. But I was also doing news stuff where I would spend a whole day at a brewery, watch them brew beer. I went on a roller coaster, to video myself on a roller coaster. I did all these crazy things that really helped me just dive into this digital video, journalism that's kind of still growing and adapting. And then Hearst bought the Register. They bought the Register Middletown Press in Torrington, and they were looking to expand. And I'm assuming I was doing such a great job in Meriden, and I kept myself, out there that there was an opening and they thought about me, and I came back, and it's been absolutely amazing.
Do you think because you've been at so many places, it's kind of allowed you to work on your craft in multiple ways?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have this on my resume anymore, but I can page design.
Really?
I don't like to tell people that I can page design because it's just,
Cool.
I like being on the sideline. I like, creating, videos and writing and taking photos. I don't really like page designing, but I can do it. But at my first job, it was a smaller paper. So I had to buy a camera and take my own photos, and then at Norwalk, if we could send a photographer to one game and I went to another game, now we have double the photos, so I was always willing to do more and extra. Look, I'll be honest with you. There are a lot of, reporters who've been doing this for a long time who love to go to a basketball game, sit in the stands and keep stats. And that's great. I'm not I'd rather take photos or get some video clips and then go to the coach after and be like, how many rebounds did he get? Cause I'm going to keep track, but I'm also going to double check with the coach anyway. So I'd rather add that extra element. That's always been my thing, especially with football. I remember the days, counting stats, being how many, I got 260 yards, and I look over at Joe Palladino or Rick Wilson and be like, how many did you get? And they're like, oh, I got 265. And you're like, now I got to go back and count again. You know what? I'd rather go home. I'll call the coach. He's calculated it by then. He'll give me the numbers.
Yeah, Palladino is one of the best, as far as when he was working. It's a shame that he had to retire. I mean, shame on him, right?
Yeah, I know, right? God, that's so selfish of him to spend time, by him, with his family and going to the opera and watching soccer. Shame on you, Joe. But I will tell you, Joe Palladino is one of the best. I don't think you could find one person that says anything negative about him. He's the nicest person. when I was a young reporter up in I'm from Long Island. I went to school at Southern in New Haven.
Mm.
My Connecticut, knowledge was New Haven and Hamden. That was it. And then I get a job and they're like, yeah, go to Torrington. I'm like, where the heck is Torrington? It's like 45 minutes off the border of Massachusetts. I'm like, where? I don't know any of the coaches. And up there is its own, it's just like the NVL where everyone's, the coaches don't turn over as much, the longtime coach, well, the new coach is his son or his daughter, her daughter, and everyone knows everybody. All these guys coaches have been around forever. The family stayed the same.
Mm.
And going in there, and Joe was just great. He would introduce me to people and let me know, hey, this is an important person to know. And as a 22-year-old coming from Southern, I had no idea what I was doing. And he was very helpful in that transition for sure.
Would you say that Palladino was one of the biggest reasons why you are where you are today?
Yeah. I mean, this guy was doing video before anybody else.
Yeah.
Him and Sean Bowley, who I work with now, were doing video way before anyone else, like tape video, and having to convert it to digital files. Now we take a memory card out, we pop it in our computer, and it all loads to our computer automatically. These guys were taking tape, converting it. Joe's doing voiceovers for all his games after writing a story. That's what you aspired to be, because, when I got in 2013, everything started to change. Video, immediate video was becoming this thing where you could post on, we had a third party company that we were our company was invested in. It was called Tout. I don't know if anyone remembers Tout, but you would video something on your phone, but you'd have to video it in the Tout app, and then you would post it, and then you'd take the link and tweet it out.
That's a lot of work.
It was very weird. Oh my God, it was crazy. And then Twitter video started to become this thing.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I think it really took off, when Twitter video knows I can immediately get, a 60-yard touchdown, a game-winning home run, a game-winning basket, a cool soccer goal. You can get that stuff out immediately. And that's when it kind of really started turning, when you're this is something that I could actually make a career out of doing on this level. Because you cover UConn, you're not filming UConn games because they have all those other rights and stuff. Yeah. I'm not going to go to a UConn game and sit on the sideline with a video camera. You can't really do that at the higher levels, but in high school you can really do that. Outside of the handful of local TV stations, WTNH in New Haven, they do a great job. Joe Zone, great job. NBC with Gabby, they do a great job. Fox 61, great job. But other than those four major ones in News 12, sorry, Fred, News 12 and Justin down in Fairfield County, but other than that, you can't, when you're doing that, you can't get to every game because they do UConn, they do, the big stuff as well because they have to. And then you have the New London Day that does the live streams. Other than that, NFHS, comes around in the playoffs and stuff. But other than that, there's kind of this not hole, but if I'm at a game, and there's no TV stations there, well, I'm the only one who's getting, highlights to put out. So it adds this different element where you're I can write and also then add a 3-minute highlight tape up there. That's awesome.
Oh no, it's a blast. I mean, I've enjoyed being able to do highlights for the last 2 years I've been doing it.
Yep.
I think both yourself, myself, McFarland, Sean, and others who put the time. I think, and I really do believe this. I think people in Connecticut, and I don't know about other states because I don't live there. I only live in as we do. I think people appreciate being able to see highlights because, for example, Thanksgiving. Some people, it's too cold where they can't go to a game, or maybe worried about getting ready for Thanksgiving, they couldn't go to a game, but they relied on yourself or myself or others on video and tweets because they want to be kept up to date. And I think I think they really do appreciate that.
It's crazy. I mean, Thanksgiving was something. Well, I'll tell you, the whole coverage of high school sports in Connecticut was a real shock to me because I'm from Long Island, and we had MSG varsity. And News 12 and Newsday. Now, Newsday is Newsday. They're a big time, prime time paper, and they do a lot of great coverage with the professional sports, and they do some higher level high school coverage, and they're very good at it. But other than that, like Long Island's a big island. There's a lot of schools, whereas opposed to here in Connecticut, we have like there's local papers in almost every part of the state. You got the JI and the Record Journal and the Day, obviously, and then all the Hearst papers and the Current, and it's just papers everywhere, which that didn't exist on Long Island where I'm from. So like the local high school team might not have gotten any coverage. My claim to fame in my high school career was being in like box scores for boys volleyball my senior year. Like that was really the only but like I get to go here and do a story on a kid who has the game of his life, won't play in college, and he'll always have that story or that article clipped out to save forever.
Yeah.
And I think that is absolutely one of the coolest things that we get to do, is that because a lot of these kids aren't going to – a lot of them will go play college.
Yep.
Very few of them will go play upper level where they're getting national news and national attention. And then those who do, it's kind of cool to look back. Like Lucas Niang just got drafted at a New Canaan. I remember interviewing him at the dinner at the football luncheon. I remember looking up at him, and I'm like, dude, you're huge. And he just kind of he was very quiet back then, and he kind of laughed, and I interviewed him. I remember Zach Allen, who got drafted the year before, when Sean and I were at the Greenwich New Canaan game, homecoming for New Canaan, and Zach stripped the ball, picked it up, and dunked on the goalpost. And I have the photo, and Sean has the video, and this guy's playing on Sundays for the Cardinals. And we went viral with him because Jimmy Graham retweeted the video, and he's like, Zach Allen's my favorite player. Now, there were mock drafts last year that Zach Allen was going to go to Green Bay. And I was hyping it. I'm like, what a story would that be, going from, him tweeting at Zach his senior year of high school being teammates. But obviously that didn't happen. But it's those kind of things that we have the ability to see and look back on. And I know a lot of reporters who have been around who have watched Dan Orlovsky go from quarterback at Shelton High School to an NFL quarterback to one of the best analysts on TV right now. There are rumors that he might be in the Monday Night Football box.
Really?
There are names, people, everyone's saying you got to pick Dan, and I think that would be awesome. But could you imagine though, watching a kid go for, not a kid, but watching him as a teen to go his whole career, I think that is so much better than covering a pro sport or college sport where they're here for 4 years or 3 years and they go on. You can build those relationships. Same with coaches who have been around for so long.
I think what's true about Dan is that his family was giving back, and I think they still are during this virus.
Yeah.
They're trying to give back to the people in the area. I know his wife is also a nurse, I think at Waterbury or St. Mary's, one of the two.
That I'm not sure. I've been trying to get Dan Orlovsky on our football podcast for the past year. So
have you?
Yeah, I've been trying.
Trying. Eventually, you'll get him on. I truly believe that, man.
I think so. We've had some emails. He's a busy guy, but it's just guys like that who you see go on and do these great things, and you look back and you're like, they're from Connecticut. My friends give me such a hard time. We're watching The Last Dance doc, so on Monday, we all reconvene in our text group for our super hot takes. And one of my buddies was like, "Oh yeah, Scott Burrell," and I'm like, "Dude, you don't get to talk about Scott Burrell. Scott Burrell is the greatest athlete to come out of Connecticut. This guy was a first-round pick in baseball. Everyone was going nuts 2 years ago. Oh, Kyler Murray, first round in baseball. Bro, Scott Burrell did that 20 years ago. Get out of here with this nonsense. Plus, he's the head coach of my alma mater. So you don't get to talk about Scott Burrell. But, they give me crap all the time. Oh, yeah, this guy, you know where he's from? And they're like, oh, Connecticut? I'm like, yes, actually, they are from Connecticut. So, I don't know. I just think it's fun. It's cool. You get to watch these, athletes go to these amazing levels, and you can say that you were there when they got their first big hit, or when they realized that, they were this great. Stephen Paolini, he got drafted last year within, I want to say, the first 10 rounds out of St. Joe's, and being there when he was, the championship game last year, everyone's chanting overrated from who they play. Wolcott. They played Wolcott in the finals. And all the Wolcott fans, overrated. Oh, lefty, big guy. He looks like Christian Yelich. If he fills out, he would look like him. Christian Yelich is a great baseball player. and he just slaps it oppo about 350 to left field over the fence, and everyone got quiet. And it's like, this guy, this kid can go on and do something great. Chad Knight. I mean, everybody knows Chad Knight, but I remember, watching him. There were guys there were reporters who we still work with, like Mary Albel I used to work with, she's a friend of mine. Like, she went to Williamsport and covered him, and then was there his first start as a freshman.
Yeah, I heard about him when he was in 7th grade. That's when I know that somebody's legit.
Yeah, I mean, and now he's going and playing at Duke. He got drafted by the Yankees. Like,
isn't there
to see these stories unfold?
There's a kid from Simsbury too that's a very good pitcher that's at Duke as well, and he is a drafted.
I don't know. There's a kid from Darien. Henry Williams is also at Duke. Jack D'Onofrio went to Notre Dame.
Yes.
Yeah, he was the Simsbury kid from last year. But like, you see and they go to these, big school, and obviously lacrosse. We had how many kids drafted this past 2 weeks that are from Fairfield County. So that's my favorite part about being a high school reporter, is that you get to see these stories and these kids and these athletes grow and become these excellent athletes and also excellent people. Like, I remember interviewing Chad Knight when he was a freshman. And then we had him on our podcast last year, and he was like, "Oh, Mr. Paguaga." I'm like, "Dude,
call me Pete.
Call me Pete. You've known me since I was like 24. Like, let's just ease up on the misters." But it's fun that way. You get to see them grow, and it's just really cool to be a part of that, the beginning of their journey.
And you mentioned, the quote when you said you were there when, then I forgot which one the last part was. But let's talk about the Newtown game. I think, that's something I've been wanting to really talk to you about, and I haven't been able to because of, before the quarantine, we actually had jobs where we had to go cover games and I had a broadcast. So just tell me about the day, because I know
the day was awful. It was rainy, foggy, and humid, and I don't think anyone wanted to be there. No, I'm just kidding. The weather was terrible. But so the first game was Sheehan Bloomfield.
Okay.
And like, that was a high scoring game. Sheehan, I want to say Sheehan scored the last like 35 points.
It was a basketball.
They blew out Bloomfield, but it was real back and forth. The weather was kind of crappy. And then obviously the Darien Newtown game. Now, I'll be honest, and there is tape out there. There is a recording of me heading into the playoffs when I said to Sean, I said, "I'm picking it now. Newtown is going to win the Double L championship." I was like, looking at the bracket, I was like, you had Greenwich and Darien playing in the first round. I was like, this kind of falls into Newtown. I go, and if they're going to get there, they're going to win. Yeah. And then we did the podcast, and then we were like, you know what? Let's cut out our picks for the championship, because then we're giving away everything. There's no reason to listen to our picks the next week.
Yeah.
Right? So we kind of cut it, and then we just did game by game. But I and Sean was too. We were both all in on the Newtown. I mean, I said it after the Shelton game. When they beat Shelton, I was like, I think they're going to win Double L. But we went in, and it's Darien. It's Rob Trufone. It's, there's such a pedigree of a program that has won so many titles recently. And they won the Big Bad FCAC. They rallied after losing to New Canaan on Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. But their offense was kind of a little stale all year. Their defense was unbelievable. It's Sam Wilson and Drew Vanchek and Jackson Peters. And there's guys that Will Bothwell. I can go on and on about that defense. But you looked on the other side, and you're like, Newtown's defense is just as good, if not maybe better. So it was like, who's going to get the break? Who's going to get, that game was so slow for the first, half. Just so a lot of punting. Like, it was like a old school football game. Those people who were like, I'd rather see a 14-7 game than a, 58-35 game. And it's like, yeah, that's totally true, but you don't play fantasy football. But like, you're watching it unfold, and you're like, every time Darien would leave the door open, and then Newtown would get the ball and go 3 and out. And then, Jared Dunn would make a big play, or James Knox would make a big play. And then they'd get the ball back, and you're like, oh, well, one thing needs to break. They couldn't get the ball moving. And then finally, the 70-yard touchdown to Riley Ward got him on the board, and you're like, huh. It's 13-7 now. Or what was the score?
I don't remember.
Neither do I, but I'm going to have to pull it up, because
Good idea.
Maybe was it 12? It was no, it was 7-7. It was 7-7. That's what it was. Okay. Whew. And God, I'll be honest with you, the whole thing's a fog. Like it really is.
I believe it.
So then, yeah. So they score on the big touchdown to Riley Ward, and you're like, now it's tied. And then Darian's going down the field. You're like, they're just going to run this ball, punch it in, and the game's going to be over. And Jared Dunn came up with a huge tackle on 4th down. A couple of plays earlier, Will Kirby trips up. He had an easy 20-yard run that would have given him a first down, maybe score. He trips up. It was 3rd down or whatever it was, and it just kind of weirdly happened. And then Newtown holds them. Jared Dunn with the tackle, like I said. They get the ball back, and I just remember like running to the end zone and being like, everything's going to come this way.
That was
and
your
even
first
if it's
thought.
Yeah, first thought. And I've learned that from Sean. You have to read how the game is going to go. Like if you're like this is like a big thing for pick sixes, and I feel like I'm giving away our secrets, but they're not really crazy. But like if a team's down 2 scores in the 4th quarter and they get the ball deep in their zone, like with their backs up against the wall, stay there. Stay in the back of the end zone. You might get a pick six. You know what I mean? Like you might get an interception coming your way. And it has worked out. You have to read the game, kind of feel how the game is going. Like when I was at the Record Journal and I was shooting, Sheen with Zach Davis. I mean, you could ask Farazi. He used to watch me just run. As soon as they got the ball, I would sprint 70, 80 yards to the other end zone because he was a machine. He had 52 touchdowns his senior year. He rushed for 3,000 yards, whatever it was. Like his numbers were absurd. So I would just run, and I was in the best shape of my life. In that season, I was in the best physical shape of my life because of Zach Davis. But the Newtown game, like you knew something had to happen. Something had to happen, and they got back in the game. And then the final play, I'm talking to Justin DeVellis from News 12, and Justin played for Newtown. His whole family played for Newtown. And he's sitting there. He's like, you think they'll kick a field goal? I'm like, dude, it's raining and it's foggy out. Even if it went in, I don't think anyone would see it go in. I was like, and then they called the timeout. And you're like, then I started thinking, I was like, maybe they are going to kick a field goal. Then they came out. Jack Street hits Riley Ward, and the rest is history. And that was, what's crazy is that the whole year we're like St. Joe's hand. Like Paulie and I are like arguing who's going to go to L. Because I always split L and double L up. And he he's like, I'm going to go to the L. I was like, all right, fine. I'll go to whoever in double L. And I had the better game. I got to witness it. And don't get me wrong, the St. Joe's hand game was very good. And I think a lot of people forget that St. Joe's was the number 1 team last year. They were the best team. I voted Newtown 2. Because I think they beat an absurd amount of teams from the SEC. They played an absurdly hard out-of-conference schedule and came out undefeated. But I think St. Joe's from top. That defense was, 1 through 11, they were unbelievable. I mean, they took their D-back the year before, made him a quarterback, and he won Gatorade State Player of the Year.
Yeah, I don't know what they do down there, but they somehow – and it's not just for football. They breed athletes from multiple sports.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unbelievable athletic program over there. Their soccer teams are really good, too. They were a legendary basketball program for a very long time. Their baseball program's awesome. I mean, they had 4 kids last year hit over 500. It's absurd. And they have great coaching. That helps a lot, but they were the best team last year. So let's not forget that. I feel like some people, all the talk has been about Newtown, and rightfully so, because it's the greatest game that I've ever seen. But St. Joe's was the number 1 team last year.
But I think the credit, to you to be able to get the exposure that you did from the Newtown game, to be able to get the views and people to see your name, because I feel like a lot of times people like yourself kind of go unnoticed, and they just think of, they don't see the face. They kind of just see the handle, or they see the video, but they don't see the person who's taking it.
Well, I will tell you this. I got a lot of text messages and a lot of phone calls after that.
Give me an
A lot.
exact number.
A lot. I think I woke up the next morning with about over 100 text messages.
I love it.
And some of them, my favorite ones were the ones that my friends sent me, being like, holy crap, like, did you see this play from Connecticut? And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, that's my name. Like, that's right there. Like, I shot this. They were, like, sending it to me, like, oh, my God, like, did you see this? And I'm like, yeah, I did. Those, but I heard from so many people. I heard from people I went to college with that I haven't heard from in forever. I mean, it was pretty crazy. Like, I couldn't respond to, like, my phone, and then with the Twitter and the
it was nuts.
The retweets, like, my phone didn't stop ringing. I didn't go to bed that night till like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And then I had to be in the office the next day at 10 to do the All-State team. So like I was running on fumes by the end of that. But I mean, it was a wild experience, and you know, getting to see them go on Sunday Night Football and the Dan Patrick Show and SVP. I mean, they deserve all of that. I mean, they're unbelievable kids. You know, obviously the story behind it, everybody knows it. But it was just a memorable moment and you know what? I talked to some of the Darien kids. We had Jackson Ward and Sam Wilson on with Sean and I a couple of months ago. God, it's weird saying that now, a couple of months ago. And, you know, they talked about that game, and they're like, look, like, you know, Sam Wilson said it the best. He said it to us the next week at the All-State photos, where he was just like, you know, you can't, sometimes there's a higher power. Like, he knows we thought we could beat Newtown. But we can't beat a higher power. Yeah. And I thought that was pretty awesome for a high school kid to say, you know, to have that just maturity, to not be like, oh, we were better or whatever. He was just very mature about it. And I thought that was really pretty cool to see. And, you know, the aftermath between Darien and Newtown and the support from both programs to each other. You know, look, there's a lot of great stuff that we see at the high school level, and there's a lot of awful stuff that we see at the high school level. And, you know, that was one of the cooler things and one of the nicer things that I think we've ever seen.
You know, but, you know, I think it's deserved, though, that you were able to get the credit that you deserved for all the work that you have done. And I kind of almost see it as what happened that night and what came after with all the publicity for you is all your hard work that didn't get recognized. You're getting it all in one big clump.
I was not opposed to all the retweets. I thoroughly enjoyed the SVP bump that I got. I mean, Stanford Steve's an Ansonia guy, you know, like Stanford Steve was at the Han St. Joe's game with Sean. Like, he was on the sideline, like, watching that game, and, like, he was following along because, you know, everyone wants the games at one spot. They do. I get it. I understand it. But, you know, it was cool to see a guy like him following along still. And he's, you know, one of the, you know, him and SVP made, like, sports gambling, you know, not popular, but they made it, like, acceptable on, like, sports TV shows. And he has his own thing now. At ESPN. And I think that's awesome. Another guy from Connecticut going to do great things, but having him be so into it and pay attention, like, that helps when, like, things like this happen and you can get it on the national stage and you can showcase these great athletes with these great moments. I mean, like I said, I'll take the SVP bump, you know, Marty Smith, who I love, you know, Colin Cowher, like, there was a lot of people, and then, like, it gets picked up on all these other platforms. And the thing that I will say, there are a lot of, like, these platforms that just steal other people's content and, like, don't give credit and stuff like that. And that's kind of what I was a little afraid of with this. But, like, I mean, Barstool, you know, say what you want about Barstool, they have such a huge following where, like, they posted it and tagged me. And all of a sudden, like, high school athletes that I used to cover who are now in college are like, yo, Pete Paguaga, he's the best reporter. I'm like, dude, no, I'm not. But, like, I will take, like, they tagged me and everything. And, like, all these former high school kids are like, he covered me when I was, you know, in 9th grade or whatever. And I'm like, that's all right. That's pretty cool. It was pretty cool to get, you know, hear from a lot of people that I really haven't spoken to in a while.
That's awesome, man. You know, like I said, it's deserved. And, you know, I could talk to you forever, but we just about run out of time. I really appreciate you coming on, man. I'm telling you, it just flies when you're having fun.
It really does, man. I will tell you this. I really appreciate you having me on. I've watched a handful of your episodes. I know that you've been posting the longer ones on YouTube. So I will tell everybody, go to YouTube to watch the longer interviews with everybody. Obviously, Twitter, you can only put a certain amount of time up. But, you know, with a lot of people in sports now being transferred over to work in news because of this crazy, really hard time, and like, we need to help our news departments, and because there isn't sports going on, but for you to still do this, and you're an NVL guy, but you are not doing this just in the NVL. I think that's awesome. You're showcasing a lot of great. I mean, you had Dufour on from Rockville. Jaquan's my guy. Like I remember when I've been on the Rockville train ever since I hired Eric Knickerbocker 2 years ago. And, I was following them. I picked them to make the playoffs 2 years ago because some guy commented on our preview and was like, everyone's overhyping this coaching staff. It's not that good. So every week when they would win, I'd like just yell, like ring the bell. And now I think he's going to play prep. Yep. He's going to play a prep year. He's going to probably go play Division I. I mean, UConn was kicking their tires on him last year. He's going to go play. I mean, you're not just sticking to the NVL, and I think that's really cool that you're showcasing all these athletes and coaches from around the state, because I think right now that's what we need. And it's a nice little outlet away from everything. So I appreciate not only having me on, but you doing this. And high school sports might not be happening right now, but there still are stories to tell. And I think you're doing a fantastic job at that.
I really do appreciate that, Pete. I really do. Selfishly, I love it because I'm able to hear about stories like yourself and others.
Yeah.
I also want to try to help people. And if I can help, a coach, a player, yourself, then I'm doing my job as a broadcaster, which is trying to keep people informed.
Yeah. And, hopefully, hey, if you ever want to do this again, I'm around.
Oh, you're welcome.
You let me know whenever. I am always down to chat with you, Chris. I really appreciate it. But more importantly, I hope I get to see you this fall in person.
Same thing. I hope as well. That'll wrap things up in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.